What happened is only one round of a greater conflict. It isn't the first or the last. We must overcome this crisis ourselves, and we should not depend on any other efforts. We are ready with the efforts of Nainawa's residents who have now volunteered to take up arms against this conspiracy.
When battles intensified inside the city of Mosul, the Iraqi forces abandoned their weapons and the commanders fled, leaving behind them weapons and armored vehicles. Their positions were easy prey for terrorists. Even Mosul airports, planes and command positions. Also prisons were stormed and criminals have been set free. What happened is a catastrophe by any measure.
I hope this incident really will lead all Iraqi leaders to come together to face this serious mortal threat to the country. And it could be an inducement to all of them to think about the greater interest and to resolve their problems, to form a new government on the basis of national unity government, of a partnership government, to work together and also to do a better job in the security.
These kinds of challenges don't have a solely military solution. So while we can provide important military assistance to improve the security situation in Iraq, addressing these challenges is going to require a commitment by the Iraqi leadership, including Prime Minister Maliki, to confront the kinds of unresolved issues that are facing all of the people in Iraq.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Between the Lines. I'm your host, Sergeant Preradovic. Well, for about 6 months now, the Iraqi army has been conducting a large military campaign against militants belonging to the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. But the latter not only repelled the attack, but in the past few days launched a series of invasions, seizing control of Iraq's second city of Mosul and more recently Tikrit. The recent developments raise serious questions about the group's strength and Baghdad's ability to rein in the militants. Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined in the studio now by Dr. Hussein Gharbiyeh. He is a Middle East affairs expert. And in London, we have Ali Al-Hille. He is a political analyst. A warm welcome to both of you, gentlemen. Dr. Gharbiyeh, I'd like to begin with you here. How has the ISIL gotten to be so powerful?
Well, it is very bewildering, to be honest with you, and nobody expected this massive invasion to the center and north of Iraq by these militants at all. It seems that the failure of these groups, more or less in Syria, they redirected their attention to Iraq rather than to Syria. What's more scary is they linked both territories in Iraq and Syria. They're under control of the Daesh.
Well, if anything, that doesn't signal a failure. That signals a success on the part of the ISIL militants. Dr. Mr. Al-Hille, rather, I'd like to bring you into the discussion here for a moment, if I can. Let's talk about the ISIL itself. How much of a propaganda victory is this for the group?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Well, of course, I mean, it's a big propaganda for Daesh, you know, the ISIS, as they are very well known. But, you know, we must make sure that what we talk about here is much more complicated than just a propaganda for ISIS. It's more of a conspiracy, I believe, that it's been going on, has been cooking actually for a long time now. I mean, we're talking about at least 3 or 4 years. This conspiracy is to actually divide Iraq into 3 parts, divide it into the Sunni part, the Shia part, and the Kurdish part. And many countries, surrounding countries, are very much involved in this conspiracy. So, and of course, Daesh is very much benefiting from this conspiracy, and they are part of this conspiracy. So I believe that it's not just issue of a propaganda for Daesh, but rather it's much more complicated than that.
Okay, we are going to broaden the discussion, of course. We're going to talk about regional and international dimensions of this. But for the moment, I want to go back to some of what you were saying, Dr. Gharibir, there. One of Maliki's former advisors said, and I quote here, "The fall of Mosul into the hands of the ISIL means that the ISIL has unified the Iraqi and Syrian front, and they have achieved their goal." What do you make of that?
Definitely. But before I start with that, I have to make clear something here. The territories that I mentioned, when Daesh took control of it in Iraq, they took the major cities of center and north of Iraq. Well, they couldn't do that in Syria. The territories under control of Daesh in Syria now was taken from Jabhat al-Nusra and Syrian
Government troops.
Not government troops, the Syrian Free Syrian Army. So they took control of these territories. Initially, they were taken from the Syrian army, but lately, Daesh took control from Nusra and Free Syrian Army. Now, they linked these territories together. This gave them some kind of a strength to these militants, where they took control of the major cities in Iraq. But what's going on here is the Iraqi army itself is a big question mark here. What is the role of the Iraqi army? I mean, what is the role of the Iraqi army here? All of a sudden, they collapsed while confronting these militants. What Maliki did today, he accused two of the army commanders in Iraq, of the Iraqi army. Two army commanders, they were sentenced to the courts today, accusing them of surrendering without any fight, as if there is some sort of...
Are you saying that the Iraqi army intentionally gave up positions? That the Iraqi army is playing a role in this conspiracy against Baghdad government?
I read what Maliki did. Maliki did what he did was accusing two of top army leaders, commanders of the Iraqi army, and sent them to the court. It means there's some sort of conspiracy here between some commanders and Daesh. Otherwise, he wouldn't announce that publicly on the press.
Okay, Ali, Ali in London, your thoughts on that? Prime Minister Maliki did talk about a conspiracy. We're hearing here talk of a conspiracy within the military itself. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's actually a conspiracy within the military itself. As I said before, I think it's a big conspiracy throughout the region.
Okay, but looking at a more, if we can narrow the discussion a little bit here, Ali, you know, has the Iraqi military effectively lost control of the security situation on the ground?
So can you repeat the question? The line isn't very good.
Yes, I was asking if you think that the Iraqi military has lost control of the security situation on the ground in Iraq.
No, I don't think so. I think the issue, you see, what we have to understand is that the people of the army in Mosul, they are very much people from the previous regime. Who gave up their weapons, and they said after the fall of Saddam Hussein, they said, okay, we are not Ba'athist anymore. We want to contribute to this new government. We are still police officers. We're still soldiers, and we want to serve this country. So the Iraqi government gave them the opportunity to go back to their jobs and do what they did before. So therefore, what showed in this particular instance 2 days ago, 3 days ago, with them abandoning their roles, it shows that they didn't really have much loyalty towards the country. More, they were very much after their wages or the money that they were getting as part of being a police officer or a soldier. So these people, the army, unfortunately, and we're talking about high-ranking people here in the army. I will say that they actually betrayed their country because they left their city which they were supposed to guard, and let's not forget here, Daesh, ISIS, they're not large numbers. They say around 2,000, and you're talking about thousands of Iraqi soldiers here. In one report it said 15 to 1, so 15 soldier to one Daesh person. So, but the question is, why did these thousands of these, last report I heard was 90,000 soldiers fled?
Well, yeah, Ali, and looking at some of those numbers, though, Ali, if I can just raise this point with you. On May 31st of this year, an Iraqi Special Forces officer was quoted as saying, ISI elements in Fallujah and in Salahuddin, Mosul, and Diyala provinces are preparing to carry out attacks on security forces in these cities to scatter the army's efforts in Anbar. I guess this was in May 31st, so they knew about this for quite some time now. A lot of people will be asking, could this have been prevented?
See, in Iraq is not as black and white as this. You can't say that, these particular intelligence, yes, of course, who didn't know? You don't need intelligence for us to know that there were ISIS members up in the north, in Mosul, in Fallujah. They've occupied it since January, Fallujah. So you don't really need intelligence forces or reports to tell you that. But the issue here is very important, and I come back to the issue, and we shouldn't really rush away from it, is that this is not ISIS coming and knocking on the door of, or actually not knocking, but storming into Mosul 2 days ago, and then the soldiers ran away. This is actually much more complicated. This has been cooking for months and months, where you find that specifically Turkey has been very much prepared to cooperate with ISIS to try to allow them to enter Iraq to clear certain issues. And this conspiracy, remember, when we talk about conspiracies, you have to talk about certain countries that have actually financed these particular rebels who've come into Iraq. So I think the issue is not a surprise. I mean, for me, I think probably for someone who isn't really following the Iraqi news, it would have been a surprise 3 days ago to find out that ISIS have taken control of Mosul. But for me, as an Iraqi analyst who follows the Iraqi news, it's not a surprise, because we know that the ISIS have been...
Okay, Ali, I'm going to stop you there because I do want to bring our other guest, Dr. Gharbia, into the discussion
and
here,
there are hundreds,
if
if not
I may.
thousands. And so therefore they've been trying to take control, and now they've been given freedom to come into Mosul.
Right, Dr. Gharbia, so let's talk about the regional dimensions here. First of all, how can the ISIL maintain this level of momentum, considering the fact that it's fighting on so many different fronts? We have Syria, as you mentioned, and Iraq as well.
Let's be clear about that. Since the Iraq U.S. invasion, American invasion to Iraq, Iraq practically has been divided into 3 major constituencies. One of them has a larger population of the Shia, some of the Sunnis, and some of the Kurds. Now the area which is under control of the Daesh today is where the Sunni majority is populated there. This is one issue. The division or the invasion, in fact, facilitated this division of Iraq.
Are you saying that this is a redrawing of the maps, a redrawing of the Sykes-Picot agreement?
This is what I believe. This is what I believe. Secondly, let's not to forget the Turkish involvement in supporting Daesh, and this was very clear only recently when they were heavily involved in the battle between Daesh and the Syrian army in the northeast of Syria, the Kasab area. And it wasn't hidden, or it wasn't secret. It was the involvement of the Turkey was straightforward, with military, with money, with the weapons, with all kind of assistance to Daesh. So it seems that the issue...
yeah, but what's not straightforward about that argument, Doctor, is why would they do something like that in Iraq? Understandably so, they want to see the government in Damascus fall, but why destabilize Iraq to the point where they threaten their own borders?
Simply because of we shouldn't take it separately. Each issue is not separate. They come together now. Simply because there's some sort of collaboration, close collaboration between the Syrian government, the Iraqi government, and the Iranian government. And this message is directed to these 3 groups together. on top of them is Hezbollah here in Lebanon. So the issue is not separated from each other. It's one issue now, and what's happening here involves all these parties together. You cannot say this area has nothing to do with this area. No, they are all linked. So Turkey today, practically, the way I see it, the role of Turkey and Saudi Arabia hasn't finished yet. And this is because this alliance, the U.S. alliance in the area, hasn't come to a conclusion of the talks with Iran on one side and Russia on the other. So still the tension here, I believe that it's a way to force something out of Iran or the Syrian government regarding the issue in Syria. So all parties are still involved. The issue is not restricted to the Syria and Iraq. It's larger than that. It's larger than that, and still America, in my opinion, is behind what's happening now.
Ali in London, let's go back to Turkey and Saudi Arabia there. Are these the two main sponsors backing the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant militants?
Well, yes. I mean, I think they are the main players behind what is growing to be what is becoming to be a growing force of ISIL. And I think they both have a very much interest. The Turks have they've always said it. They want to install their own version of the government in Iraq. In fact, the Prime Minister said once that they want the Ottoman-style governance to come back to Iraq, when the Ottomans used to occupy Iraq before. And so therefore, they have this deep interest. And unfortunately, and it's really disappointing, and I say this with complete bitterness, is that the issue is about, the bringing Sunnis back to power. And that is what it is. Saudi Arabia have worked tirelessly to try to bring the Sunnis back to power, because they say that, we've had 80 years of Sunni power in Iraq, around 80 years, and suddenly
but moves like this, Ali, will not do that. They will not facilitate the return of the Sunnis. As we've mentioned here, you said it yourself, this will facilitate for the creation or the redrawing of the borders, a creation of a whole new state. Yes.
So you have to repeat that. I couldn't hear it properly.
Yes. Do you consider, do you think that essentially this backing of the ISIL by the Saudis is not aimed at returning the Sunnis to power in Iraq, but rather creating a new state?
Yes, I mean, the issue. I think that both of the things are the same thing. They want to create a state where it is run by the Sunnis, as how it was during Saddam Hussein's time, and them, having the Shias in power, as in the form of Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, and having Iran close by. They very much fear that it's going to be a Shia force, and of course you have Hezbollah in Lebanon as well. And what's happening in Syria as well. So they very much fear that the Shias are becoming stronger. So therefore they must support and fuel and provide fuel for ISIL to try to get so to speak win more ground for the Sunnis. They now say that in Mosul, it's now a Sunni occupied area, which solely is for the Sunnis. But however, I just want to emphasize one important thing. The issue now that is happening in Mosul, it's not an involvement of the Shias in terms of battling with the Sunnis. Some of the press have actually, or the media have actually been trying to say this is a sectarian issue. Yes, you might say that it's a conspiracy by certain countries so that they can divide Iraq into pieces, the Shia Sunnis. However, this fighting now that it's happening in Iraq is not a Shia Sunni issue. The Sunnis in the form of ISIL have come in by force and they have fought with the army, who are also actually Sunnis, right? So it's not a sectarian issue of Sunni Shia issue. But if you look at the region specifically Saudi Arabia and Turkey, they're very much interested and very much support this insurgence by the ISIL, so that they can install in the future, they hope, reinstall, you know, the form of Sunni government in Iraq.
All right, gentlemen, on that note, we are going to have to jump to a quick break right now. We'll be back in a few moments to continue our discussion. Stay with us.
On pavements and streets, by cars and near trees. We search the civilization and tradition. Around the corners of Beirut and Lebanon. We'll be exploring something different and something new. Through fantasy and simplicity. It is our job to bring out the magic of the busy life for you to see.
Evening. Women's rights redefined.
Welcome back. You're watching Between the Lines with me, Sergeant Preradovic. Just a reminder before we went to our break, we're talking about the recent militant advances across Iraq. Dr. Gharbi, I want to come back to you here. We talked, of course, about the involvement of regional powers. Now, Prime Minister Maliki has accused the Saudis of backing the militancy in Iraq. Is that an accurate description?
As I mentioned before, there's an alliance. This alliance, they play different roles. They take part in fulfilling the plan. But what I don't understand is, recently President Rouhani was in Turkey. Turkey today support Daesh, who is making all these incursions into some major Iraqi cities. Definitely Saudi Arabia is pro these militants and support them heavily, simply because they are anti, and if you see the slogans the Daesh always pronounce, they are anti-Shiism, anti-Shia, as if they want to transform the chaos today in Iraq in a sectarian way. So, and the position of Saudi Arabia regarding the Shias in general is very well known. We don't have to discuss it or to elaborate on the issue. Okay,
we're talking a lot about the regional factors here and the way regional players are influencing or throwing fuel on fire on this sectarian conflict in Iraq. Ali, I want to jump to you here. What about the critics who say that Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is to blame for the sectarian divisions?
Well, you know, in this particular issue, everyone can have the right to point the finger at each other. But I don't think, you know, this is the issue that we must do as, you know, Iraqi people, as people who have actually interest in the region. I think, you know, it is very important now that all the political fractions must come together They must try to unite.
Okay, so what can Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, what can Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, what should he be doing in this situation right now?
Well, I was about to say, as I speak, today at 6 p.m. local time, all the political leaders of the political fractions in Iraq have met in former Prime Minister's office, Ibrahim al-Ja'fari, the former Iraqi Prime Minister's office. And they are sitting down, and this is actually, some people might think this is not very important, but this is actually quite a very significant advancement. Getting everyone together to sit down in one meeting is actually an achievement in Iraq. So we can see the positive positiveness that are coming out from different fractions. And Nouri al-Maliki's strategy, I think, it's very simple. I think he wants to bring everyone together. He wants to consult everyone. He wants to bring everyone into the picture and try to figure out a solution for this. Now, what's important is actually tomorrow. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister has asked Parliament. Parliament will sit down and vote for whether they want to put Iraq into a state of emergency. And this is what Prime Minister Maliki has asked for. He wants the Iraq to be in the state of emergency. And what this gives him particularly, it gives him lots of powers in terms of trying to solve this particular issue. But of course, in constant consultation with the different political fractions. And this is what's important. I think if there is going to be
a lot of people, Ali, are actually worried about some of those powers. A lot of them are saying that we may not get that state of emergency because of the political divisions and accusations that Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki may abuse those powers down the road.
Well, you've just asked two questions. The first question is whether they will actually pass this state of emergency law, and I think they will. Before there were issues that there were laws that were not passed because of political differences, but now I think the Shias have come together. We've heard good news from the Marji'iyya, where the Grand Ayatollah Sistani has issued a statement saying that people must unite and the army must face these terrorists, and so therefore the Shias have come together. As I said, now they are sitting down all in one room, trying to negotiate some sort of an agreement between themselves so that they can solve this particular issue. But the second question you asked is about Maliki's powers. As I said, in this particular instance, you do need someone powerful to use all the powers necessary to try to clamp down on these terrorists. I mean, it's very much it's very easy for everyone to say, oh, you need to too much power for someone, he can abuse it and things like that. But Prime Minister Maliki is an experienced person. He has shown that he is a person who can actually deliver. He's delivered on security in 2009. It was excellent security in Iraq, and in 2010. But unfortunately, because of the Syrian conflict, you had the introduction of these Daesh, where they were formed in around 2011, and then they came into Iraq and started doing all these atrocities in Iraq. So therefore, he needs to sit down with his generals and with these certain political figures and security experts to try to redraw the security map in Iraq, and try to. He has said today that he's trying to change some of the the security forces, their positions, etc., to try to accommodate for attacking Mosul. Now, no one really actually knows what Maliki will be doing once the state of emergency will actually go through in Iraq.
Okay, we're going to talk about Ali. I have to stop you there because I am going to get to that. I am going to get to that in a moment. I want to bring you back in here, Dr. Rabia. Let's your response to some of that there. For starters, do you think that this latest crisis has the potential to unify the different political factions in Iraq?
Unfortunately, I would say, unfortunately, the Shia group today is regrouping under a sectarian issue today. Muqtada Sadr, Hakim, Maliki's group, they are all regrouping, and Marja'iyya as well, against this threat called Daesh. So here the issue is becoming Sunni Shia. And this is the real threat in Iraq today. The state of emergency is inevitable. It's happening. It is happening. So Maliki, even before the general election, he launched a campaign against these groups, militant groups.
Okay, so what more can he do?
In Al-Anbar.
What more can he do?
He was accused of all sorts of things. Look what happened today. So he was doing the right thing, but he didn't get the support. But today, the Sunni president of the parliament, he supported now the Iraqi army and Maliki in order to get rid of Daesh. So political positions or opinion are changing now in Iraq, but unfortunately it seems too late now. And the security issue now is at stake. It is the main issue in Iraq, more than any other issue that you should tackle. The security issue today is at the front. You should tackle it quickly, and it is at the hand of Mr. Maliki. Mr. Maliki was accused in the past of all sorts of things, but in fact he was doing the right thing in order to get rid of the country.
Okay, he was doing it in the past, but it wasn't working for whatever reason, whether it was because of political divisions or because it was ineffective on the ground. Okay, so suppose now, what does he do next? What more can he do to drive these militants out when the situation has gotten worse?
This is the major issue now. As I said, the issue is not internal. It's not an pure Iraqi issue. It is regional now.
But nobody's going to come to the aid of Maliki's government to try and rescue him from.
We have to wait and see. I think they will come to the rescue, and because the danger of Daesh is spreading fast, and if they are not stopped, it will cause real damage to the region, not only to Iraq. So assistance is coming to Iraq, and basically coming to help and to aid the Iraqi government. This is inevitable. Otherwise, as if they want the region in general to be destroyed. One more thing, one more point. The areas that are controlled by Daesh today, if you look at the map, look at the geography, look at the map. Daesh today, south of it is Jordan, south of it is Saudi Arabia. Basically, they want to cut off Iraq from Syria. And this is one of the major objectives of the control of Daesh to the major cities and areas in Iraq. So issues are coming very complicated, and they are trying to turn it into a Sunni Shia where the danger is here.
Ali, Dr. Gharbi is talking about, mentioned their help coming from abroad. Let's look at some of the possible avenues of assistance. The Americans have been promising the Iraqi government more arms, more assistance, more logistical support, but they've been dragging their feet on the issue. Why is that?
Well, you can't really trust the Americans in what they say actually, and
well, certainly not when it comes to Iraq.
What they do
and Syria.
Yeah, I mean, with the whole region, really. You can't really trust the Americans in this issue. But then again, the problem is that when Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki went to America and asked for some battle for warplanes, to buy helicopters and warplanes, etc., so that he can use it in his fight against Daesh. Remember, let's not forget, Prime Minister Maliki has been fighting Daesh now for around a year, actually, and it's been a long time. And he successfully has, eradicated a lot of the members. However, a few months later, the parliament spokesman Nujayfi went to America after Maliki's visit and tried to convince President Obama not to sell these helicopters and warplanes to al-Maliki, because he's saying that he's targeting al-Sunnis and Maliki's killing the Sunnis, etc. So then again, unfortunately, there you go. You have al-Nujayfi, the biggest. I think he's the biggest political playmaker that has actually disrupted the political process. and he went.
Okay,
and,
Ali,
and
but
tried
he
to
is still
persuade the
there.
Americans not
He
to sell them.
remains in his post. How is Maliki going to tackle this threat given the political obstacles that he faces?
Well, I mean, I think once he gets the powers that he needs, I emphasize again, the issue is that it's not that he wants the power to be a dictator of such, but no, he wants the power to try to act accordingly as the prime minister, as the head of the army. He wants to come out and try to act accordingly. Now, in terms of America's help, and I think he will ask officially, because he is allowed, if the Iraq was in a state of emergency, he is allowed to ask help from any country. Otherwise, he would have had to go to Parliament to ask them to approve this intervention. But then I think he will go to the Americans. I think the Americans might help, but not help in terms of military, but in terms of intelligence. I think they will send some people to help the Iraqi army to try to gather some intelligence about the whereabouts of the heads of Daesh in around Mosul. And I think that is something that will happen. I think al-Maliki also will. It might take some time. I mean, people shouldn't really think this will take a few days, but it might take some time. But I think he will get the equipment that he needs from America, and he will use them against Daesh. Now, he must be careful. He doesn't want to create another Syria where he comes up in the air and shoots innocent civilians. And I'm sure this will not happen. And I'm sure with certain intelligence that they will make sure that they will hit their target properly. So I think the issue is not as clear as some people think. However, I think that Daesh cannot advance any further. I mean, some people are afraid that they will go to Baghdad. That is impossible, because Baghdad is very much protected, is heavily protected by the army. And the army, remember, the army in Baghdad and in the south are not the same as the army in the north. The army in the north, they were very much loyal to the previous regime, Saddam Hussein's regime. And so therefore they run away. They don't have loyalty to Iraq, whereas the army in the south and the army in the center have very much loyal to the Iraqi. They're very much loyal to the Iraqi government, and so therefore they will stand their ground. So in terms of Daesh advancing, this will not happen at all. And I think that they will stay in Mosul, and they try to go further to Tikrit, etc. But today, as we have seen, that they didn't at all advance, and they stopped at Tikrit, and in fact they were pushed back.
Dr. Gharbia, what are your thoughts on that? Did the ISIL bite off more than it can chew here?
Give me a few months to explain what I would like to say. When I said the Maliki government will get some assistance, I didn't say from the US. They will get it from Iran, not from the US. What's happening today is under the blessing of the United States of America. The expansion of Daesh is taking place with the support of the Americans, in my opinion. So the Iranians will step in if things is worsening in Iraq. Because what's happening now, geographically, and if you're talking about geopolitics, Iraq is more important to Iran than Syria. Iran is involved in Syria, so they will get involved in Iraq as well, because it's bordering Iran.
So what do you think the Americans want? You're saying they're supporting the push. You think they want to reestablish a military presence in Iraq?
America would like to say, as I keep saying, America would like to establish chaos in the area all the time. And this is the best security, and this is one of the best, fulfilling, or one of the objectives in America in the area is security of Israel. What's happening in Iraq and Syria and in the region is the best security for Israel. So this is one of the objectives of the American interest in the area, oil and security of Israel. So this is already established. Once you have Arab countries divided, killing each other, they have no time to think of Israel. So Israel is safe, and the objective is protected here. So America doesn't care about Iraqis or Syrian or Iranians. what cares about is Israel only. This is a point we should always look at. So America is looking with pleasure about what's happening. They'll talk about the threat of Daesh later on, and when the militants go back to their countries in Europe and America. But what's happening now at this stage is pleasant to the Americans, and all the parties involved, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and these countries will be exhausted, and they will be weaker all the time, because what's happening in the region would weaken all these countries. But Israel is safe, the US is safe. So in my opinion, what's happening is in favor of the US.
Okay, Ali, your thoughts to some of that there. I mean, we talked about Turkey and Saudi Arabia backing the ISIL. Now, these are allies of Washington's. Why would Washington be backing the ISIL indirectly or directly? It's hard to say, and then be giving Baghdad the support it needs to defeat it.
This is my point.
Well, I mean, you ask an interesting question, and in politics, it's not black and white. You know, as you very well know, in politics, it's all some divisions they support one particular group and support the other group, which are who are enemies of both. So the issue is that it's not as black and white as some people might think. But I personally don't think that the presence of Daesh in Iraq suits American interest. Yes, the presence of Daesh in Syria does suit the American interest, because, as your guest has rightly said, it also suits Israeli interest. But the stability of Iraq is important for the Americans. Why? Because America, first of all, they were the people who got rid of Saddam, and it will be a big failure for them if after 10 years of freeing the Iraqi people from Saddam Hussein's regime, then it gets taken over by these terrorists, and they will bring around the Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda people in that particular region. And that's actually my second point, which is they do not want these particular fanatics in that particular region who will have very much access to the region, and will have more power in that particular region. And what's
okay? Let me get Dr.
Graves.
Let me just get Dr. Graves' response to that real quickly. I see you're shaking your head there, Doctor. What's your response to that?
As I said before, America doesn't care about security in Iraq, stability in Iraq at all. America, as I said, America cares about two things: oil and security of Israel. As long as oil goes to the industrial countries, this is the objective fulfilled. Security of Israel is maintained. This is the other objective fulfilled. And these are the two major strategic objectives of the US in the area. Apart from that, America doesn't care about any kind of stability in the area as long as these two are fulfilled. Let's look at the map. We should look at the map at hand. Lebanon is divided. Syria is divided. Iraq is divided. Turkey is supporting some groups, and Turkey is an ally of the US. Saudi Arabia is supporting this Daesh group, and they are allied of the US. Don't tell me America wants security and stability in Iraq. I don't believe that. I don't buy it. So America, in fact, is happy with what's happening in Iraq, simply because what's happening in Iraq today would weaken the Iranians. The fight, the target now is Iran. So I don't know Iran how it's going to deal with the issue. It's very complicated. As I said, only a few days back, the Iranian president was in Turkey, and Turkey is replying now with this support to Daesh, which is at the door of the Iranians. I don't know how it's going to be solved. We'll have to wait and see. But America doesn't care about stability in Iraq at all.
Okay, Ali, let's start with some final thoughts here. Tehran has always said that its involvement and its support for the government in Damascus is in part due to the fact that it wants to prevent these Takfiri militants from reaching the doorstep of Tehran itself. Are we talking about perhaps direct Iranian involvement in Iraq?
Maybe. It is possible. I mean, after all, these people, the Daesh, I mean, people really need to know who Daesh are. These Daesh, I mean, yesterday I saw a video clip where, you know, they, in Mosul, where they're actually announcing in these very loud speakers that, you know, if you find these, they call them Safawis, you know, the Shias. If you find them, then make sure you kill them and you behead them, and all these terrible violence that they actually use to kill people. And these people are very ruthless, and their main aim, regardless of the political issues, you know, there are a lot of political issues going on, but regardless of that, their main aim is actually to eradicate the Shias, and this is the Wahhabi mentality. And of course, you know, they very much like to come into Iraq because Iraq, the majority in Iraq, around 60% of Iraqis are actually Shias, and you have Iran close by, and so therefore they very much are in that particular region where they find the people that they need to kill, and they actually do tell each other that if you kill one Shia, you are going to paradise, and so therefore they, you know, this is their mentality, this is their violent mentality that Islam does not at all accept, nor any other religion will actually accept. So Iran's influence in Iraq is hopefully it is a positive influence. You know, as Iraqi people, you know, we hope that Iran can actually help the Iraqis to try to combat these people. I don't particularly mean militarily, but I also mean, you know, in terms of intelligence. And something that Iraq really lacks is intelligence. And I think that is the major weakness in Iraq, is actually intelligence. And if we get some help from the Iranians regarding intelligence, I think we can work together to try to get rid of Daesh from Iraq altogether.
All right, gentlemen, on that note, I'm afraid that we have run out of time on this week's edition of the show. I want to thank my guests for that discussion. Dr. Hussein Gharbia, he's a Middle East affairs expert, and of course, Ali Al-Halle, he is a political analyst joining us from London. And thank you for watching. Don't forget that you can catch us again at the same time next week. Goodbye for now.
What happened is only one round of a greater conflict. It isn't the first or the last. We must overcome this crisis ourselves, and we should not depend on any other efforts. We are ready with the efforts of Nainawa's residents who have now volunteered to take up arms against this conspiracy.
When battles intensified inside the city of Mosul, the Iraqi forces abandoned their weapons and the commanders